libiamo negli lieti calici che la bellezza infiora.
Hello, and welcome to our fourth installment of Lunch with Painted Sky Opera. I'm Rob Glaubitz, Artistic Director of Painted Sky Opera, and I appreciate that you joined us. We have a great program for you today featuring soprano Saira Frank and bass-baritone Kevin Eckard. Both have appeared in multiple Painted Sky Opera productions, with Saira appearing most recently in our production of Glory Denied last season, and Kevin appearing in both of our productions of Amal and the Night Visitors. Kevin actually is one of the few people to have roles in productions in all 4 of our seasons so far. Before we get to the singing, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this installment of Lunch with Painted Sky Opera, Lawrence and Rana Davis. We appreciate their generosity and support for our efforts to bring you programming like Lunch with Painted Sky Opera. Thank you, Larry and Rana. If you'd like to help sponsor a future installment of Lunch with Painted Sky Opera, please contact us at info@paintedskyopera.org. Now, on to the singing. We'll start today with a selection from Verdi's operatic version of Macbeth, with Kevin singing Come dal ciel precipita.
Now, my character in this aria is Banco, and he's going home with his son, and he realizes that Macbeth has probably done something pretty terrible, and so he's trying to figure out what to do. And in this particular aria, as they're going home, he senses in the shadows that something is about to happen and that they're about to be attacked. This aria is about his emotions and his desire to protect his son and to be able to get him home safely. And it's very dark and foreboding, and it's just a wonderful aria. I hope you enjoy it.
Mio figlio, usciam da queste tenebre, un senso ignoto, nascermi senza in petto, pien di tristo presagio sospetto. Come dal ciel precipita il mio pensiero ingombra di terror, il mio pensiero ingombra di terror, ingombrano di terror e di terror e di terror.
Verdi has always been one of my favorite composers. I feel like he writes really well, composes really well for the low male voice. His instrumentation, the beautiful melodies that he writes, these types of things really connect with me, and I've always felt a strong connection to Verdi's music and all of his arias. This particular aria was special for me because it was one of the first bass arias that I've ever gotten to work on. And when I started working on it, I thought, wow, these have such beautiful melodies and such interesting harmonies, and you could just feel the fear and the dread in the music as it's playing along. And of course, Banco, at this point, it's not about him. It's about him protecting his son and realizing that there is darkness all around him. And he vividly is describing the darkness of the entire scene and telling his son, you have to watch out. You have to see these shadows because something bad is about to happen and we need to be on our guard. What's really fascinating about this aria is it's also the last thing that Banco sings or does in the entire opera. He gets to sing this glorious aria and then he's murdered. And he's, of course, murdered by Macbeth and his wife as they send assassins to go kill them. And so this is him not only warning of his son, telling his son to keep an eye out for everything that's going on, but to also show what a heroic character Banco is. And it's just such a lovely aria. I think that you'll really enjoy it. So I wanted to sing it for you today.
In spring of 2017, we were looking for a soprano to star in our upcoming production of Puccini's Tosca when we received Sarah's video audition. Even without hearing her sing in person, we realized right away that we had found our Tosca. You could see why in the next selection, featuring Sarah's creative take on Tosca's famous aria, Vissi d'arte.
This aria is Vissi d'arte. I have lived for art. I have lived for love, from Puccini's Tosca, and it's from the second act of Tosca. Tosca has been given a terrible choice. She's an opera singer who has a wonderful boyfriend, and she's been given the choice of watch him die or succumb to sexual violence. And so she takes a moment as a pious woman to reflect upon this decision, and she asks God, why are all of her good deeds being repaid this way? In my reimagining, a pregnant opera singer is in the middle of a global pandemic, and she's seeing all of this turmoil and violence happening in the world around her, and also facing the real ramifications of the pandemic with her family and her pregnancy. And she goes to sing, but she's wearing a mask and it's frustrating, and she puts all her books away. And I hope you enjoy my reimagining of Tosca's Vissi d'arte.
astri al ciel che ne ride anche un penny nell'ora dell'olor perché Signor perché me ne rimore
So there's so much to love about Puccini, and Vissi d'arte is, of course, one of the most iconic opera arias that ever existed. I mean, people who don't even really know much about opera recognize this song and are easily moved by this piece. That's often the case with Puccini arias because they're so short and they're so captivating and they're so completely emotional. And so that, of course, is incredibly drawing about this piece. For me, I came at Tosca very quickly a few years back. I was asked to step into the role out in California for a wonderful company out there in LA called Pacific Opera Project. And their singer had dropped out, and so I got that awesome opportunity that we all dream about to jump in. And so I had to learn the role in 2 weeks and put it on. And I think because of that quick learning process, I really got totally wrapped up into the character very quickly. And so there wasn't that long, steady introduction to the role that often happens. I just kind of had to throw myself like wholeheartedly into it. So that was a very unique experience. So then later, a few years later, when I got to sing it with Painted Sky Opera, I had lived with it a little more, and I definitely felt like Vissi d'arte and Tosca, the role in general, had matured in many ways, and I felt more vocally ready for it. As far as what are your favorite things to sing, I don't think there is anything that can really compete with these really dramatic, powerfully emotional arias. And so Vissi d'arte is kind of unrivaled in that way. You know, if you're ever looking for something that, you can present to just about anyone and they will enjoy it and they will feel that power of opera and the operatic voice and the sound that comes from the human body unamplified. Vissi d'arte is the first thing that I would think of to sing.
The role of Leporello, who is the loyal servant of Don Giovanni from Mozart's opera by the same name, is one of the more celebrated roles sung by bass baritones. Besides great singing, it also requires adept comic acting to play off of the sinister Don Giovanni. At the beginning of the opera, Leporello sings one of Mozart's most recognizable arias, in which he details his master's romantic conquests. Here's Kevin singing the Catalogue Aria from Mozart's Don Giovanni.
The Catalogue Aria is basically, at this point, Don Giovanni has told Leporello, get rid of Donna Elvira and show her my catalog. The catalog is, of course, the list of conquests Don Giovanni has had in all of his romantic relationships. And so, in order to get her to quit pursuing him, he figures maybe if Leporello is cruel enough by showing this catalog of women, that Donna Elvira will realize it's useless and she'll go home and quit bothering Don Giovanni about getting together and going back together.
Madamina, il catalogo è questo, delle belle che muoio per un mio, un catalogo è che ho fatto io. Osservate, leggete con me, osservate, leggete con me. principesse e bondone d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. In Italia 640, in Romagna 231, 100 in Francia, in Turchia 91, ma in Spagna son già 1.300. 1.300. Ma fra queste contadine, camerieri, cittadine, ma contessa, baronesse, marchesane, principesse, e bondone d'ogni grado, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età, d'ogni forma, d'ogni età. Bella bionda e la l'usanza di lodar la gentilezza, bella pruna la costanza, bella bianca la dolcezza, vo d'inverno la grassota, vo d'estate la macrotta, e la grande maestosa, e la grande maestosa, la piccina, 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 e ognor vezzosa, e ognor vezzosa, e ognor vezzosa, delle vecchie fa conquista, el piacer di porle in lista, ma passion predominante e la giovem principiante non se picca, se sia ricca, se sia brutta, se sia bella, se sia ricca, brutta, se sia bella, purché porti la gonella. Voi sapete quel che fa, voi sapete quel che fa, purché porti la gonnella. Voi sapete quel che fa, voi sapete, voi sapete quel che fa. Voi sapete quel che fa.
Don Giovanni has always been one of my favorite operas, and of course Mozart being one of my favorite composers, I always felt a kind of connection to the whole show. I've always been engaged in it. I thought it was just a brilliant concept. And the character of Leporello, I just kind of had an identity with that. And the Catalogue Aria just became something that I studied and worked really hard to figure out and learn. It's one of the most difficult bass-baritone arias in the repertoire. You have lots of words rapidly coming out. It requires great physical technique to sing it, but also you have to be able to add that comic flair and to be able to be the character of Leporello. And the trick with this aria, of course, is you have to decide what direction you want to take it. Do you want him to be mean and really punish Donna Elvira with what he's saying? Or do you want him to be more playful with it and just kind of tease her with it? My personal opinion is that he has to have a certain element of meanness. And so the first part of this, he's being pretty malicious with Donna Elvira and how he thinks she should go away and realize she's just one in a number. But then as this progression happens through the aria, because it is such a big aria, in the second half of the aria, Leporello finds himself getting caught up in this catalogue. This is what he wants. He wants to be like Don Giovanni. He follows him everywhere and serves him because he admires what Don Giovanni is able to get away with. And so in the second half, when he starts describing how the women look and starts talking about their physical attributes, he becomes more engrossed in it. It becomes him pretending to be the Don, versus the first half when he's just got the catalog in his hand and he's showing Donna Elvira that there's 1,003 in Spain and all of these different women that he's had and their different levels and ages and sizes. So the technical aspect, the dramatic aspect, the comedic character of it, it contains everything in this aria. So I've always just felt really passionate about performing this and felt really connected to this character.
Our last two selections today come from one of the great operettas of all time, Franz Lehar's The Merry Widow. Like many operettas, The Merry Widow combines a convoluted plot with vivid characters and beautiful melodies. The show features fake foreign countries, dancing girls, and of course, a very wealthy widow. Now, just a warning though, like the melodies from many operettas, today's selections from The Merry Widow are so catchy that you may find yourself humming them for hours after today's program has ended. The first of the two selections from The Merry Widow is a duet, and this duet is so strongly connected with this operetta that it takes its name from the title of the show. Here are Kevin and Sarah singing The Merry Widow Waltz.
The Merry Widow Waltz happens right at the end of the operetta, and Hannah, the Merry Widow, and Danilo have been kind of having this playful back and forth, flirtatious but angry and fighting all through the whole operetta. And now we've reached the end, and it's finally come time for them to admit to each other how they feel. And so everything kind of falls into place as it happens in opera. All of the confusing things that had happened, Hannah was engaged, there was all this confusion about her money, and everything has fallen into place, and Danilo and Hannah have finally taken this moment to tell each other how they feel.
It's time for them to kind of bring it all together in this moment, expressing their love and having the happy ending that we like to see at the end of the show.
Why should I have told you at all?
Hannah, can't you guess what I want to say?
No, if you want to say it, why not just open your mouth and say it?
I can't.
A true diplomat, incapable of a simple speech.
Can you say it?
No, not before you.
Do you hear the music?
Yes.
Then listen closely. I can't say it. You can't say it. Let the violin say it. While our lips are still denying words of love, pleading strings are softly sighing, be my love. Haunting sounds of music echo from above. They reply, it's true, you are my love.
Waltz was bittersweet to its compelling beat. I heard my heart break
For me, in terms of operetta, I think my approach to singing it is a little bit different, but it's very much character focused. I like to focus a lot more in terms of my diction and really kind of bringing that character across as I'm doing operetta roles.
Agreed. The text is so important in the operetta and in the world of operetta, and being that they're always performed in English for the most part, most companies do it that way. It really makes it accessible for the audience. And operetta, I've also found, is a really fun way to connect with audiences that aren't necessarily opera audiences. You know, in senior homes and in community concerts where people are looking for something fun and they love the comedy and they love the silliness, and it's really easy to connect to.
I feel really fortunate that I do have a teaching position to do full time. And I pick a few productions that I get to do professionally each year. My big focus has always been my family and taking care of my son. And so I try and make sure that I'm there for all of his events, in addition to doing my job teaching, in addition to then doing what performance I can do in terms of that schedule. And balancing it can be a little tricky. I kind of label him as my priority. And then I've been blessed enough to have enough job offers and productions that I've been able to consistently perform every year and make arrangements so that either he can come with me or my parents to watch over him and while I do certain rehearsals and things of that nature.
So finding that balance is definitely something we're still working on. I think it'll be a work in progress, probably, you know, as long as our life goes. But we have definitely been very fortunate to live near our families. My mother-in-law lives 2 doors down. I see her a couple times a day. It's wonderful. And my own parents don't live very far away. And as far as work, you know, usually I do have a very flexible job. I'm an administrator for Opera for the Young in Wisconsin, and that definitely takes a lot of my time, but a lot of that can be done on the computer, so I can travel and do that work, which works really well for opera singers, because oftentimes we'll get someplace and we'll have rehearsals maybe during the day for a few days, but as you get closer to the production, it's all evenings. And so you've got a whole day where you could, you know, continue with some sort of other work that you might need to do. So still working on the balance, but it's definitely coming along and it's definitely worth it.
There's still one more selection on today's program, but first, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I'd also like to thank our sponsors of this program, Lawrence and Rana Davis, as well as our pianist, Associate Music Director of Painted Sky Opera, Joe Fitzgerald. Please join us for our next installment of Lunch with Painted Sky Opera in 2 weeks from today, on Thursday, June 25th, when we feature 2 local Oklahoma City singers, soprano Solveig Nesseth and baritone Jordan Andrews. As always, if you liked what you heard today and want to help us bring you more original operatic programming like this, please go to www.paintedskyopera.org to donate, or contact us at info@paintedskyopera.org to see how you can help. We are so thankful to all of you for supporting opera in Oklahoma City. We'll end today's program with Sarah performing the most famous song from The Merry Widow, the Vilja Lied.
This happens at the opening of Act 2. Hannah Glavery, the Merry Widow, is having a big party for all of her friends, and they start begging her, oh, tell us the story of the Vilja. And so she presents this fairy tale and tells this story of a young man who is enchanted by this spirit of the woods, this sprite of Vilja. And this Vilja steals the souls of young men, and then you can hear their voices echo long after they're gone. And so in my own little reimagining here in my living room, I'm telling a fairy tale to my daughter. The Merry Widow was my first opera performed in my master's degree at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I had such such a blast singing The Merry Widow. Plus, I was at the time working in the costume shop at the university, and so I got to help build all of these amazing gowns that Hannah wears. So I have a very fond connection to the character just because of that incredible amount of fun that went into, not only being the opera singer who gets to go on stage and be the lead in an opera and feel that, special, that special moment, but also I got to be the person behind the scenes, working on the tech side and getting this opera ready to perform for audience. Vilja Lied in particular is such a beautiful song. Technically, when I was first working on it with my teacher, it was so difficult to really go from these like boop, 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 little fairy tale storytelling to this drawn out, beautiful legato lyrical line. And so that was a great challenge for me. And I think my voice grew a lot through working with that and through the whole role, really. The other thing that I will say is that I have sung this aria probably like 200 times or more at retirement homes. So not only has this been one of my, pivotal moments in my singing career, that first big solo lead role on an operatic stage at the university, that's very important, but it's also been an incredible piece for me to learn through by singing over and over and over in front of different audiences.
can't escape. I am yours to command. Via, oh via, my heart is on fire, burning with love and desire. Vilja, oh Vilja, I've woven your spell. I can't escape. I am yours to compel. Vilja, oh Vilja, my heart is on fire, burning with love and desire, burning with love.
And I had some concerts lined up that are temporarily going to be on hold. Right now, I'm focused on getting ready for fall semester and making plans to try and teach safely. I am also trying to make sure that I practice every day. I think having been secluded at home for so long, I've had to struggle with the same thing some of my students have had to struggle with. And now working on the audition repertoire, planning where I'm going to sing next, who I'm going to audition for, being prepared for the moment when we get the chance to sing for everyone again. And that's what I'm working towards.
I had a few concert performances canceled, the Brahms Requiem and a solo recital up in Minnesota with the Lead Society. For the time being, actually, this year is going to be, my focus will be having a second child. So I will be taking a few months off anyway. So that kind of worked out in my favor, I suppose. You know, then next fall, winter, I can come back at it and reassess and figure out how this new world works post-COVID, hopefully post.